Hi everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for another royal news video. So if you haven't already, please remember, if you like the content in this video, hit subscribe. Please remember it is completely free. You do not get charged. You can subscribe to as many channels as you like. Please also hit the like button and hit the notification bell. So we're going to start off this video with the very top, which of course is His Majesty the King, who yesterday had a meeting with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak at Buckingham Palace. This is pretty normal for the King to meet with the Prime Minister. They normally meet every week, but obviously with Charles spending a lot of time at Sandringham, it was a pleasant surprise to see him, and he looks really, really well. The King also expressed that he had been overwhelmed and brought to tears by the kindness and the well wishes and the wonderful cards that have been sent to him during his recovery from his cancer treatment. It's lovely to hear that the King knows that he is feeling the love from everyone all around the world. As Rishi was escorted into the room to meet with the King, there was a notable change, and that was he was actually escorted in by Lieutenant Commander Will Thornton of the Fleet Air Arm, who has now taken the position from Lieutenant Colonel Johnny Thompson. Johnny Thompson has been a fan favourite, and it all started off as Major Johnny when he first arrived on the scene, where he was seen serving the Queen as equerry, and then King Charles kept him on as his own. He has been so well liked, he has actually been promoted to super equerry, and he now works for the King and also Queen Camilla. It is supposed to be a less public facing role, but a story that has come out today which irked me a little bit was in the Daily Mail, surprise, surprise. But they said that Johnny decided to take a step back because he didn't like all the attention he was getting from fans. Now, obviously some people take things a little bit too far, but I highly doubt that he was upset so much by a few women posting lovely pictures of him and nice messages on social media, and it probably had a lot more to do with the press intrusion. I'm not going to show you the photographs because I thought it was wrong at the time, but basically because they knew he had a bit of a following by royal watchers, they started delving into his personal life, and only last month an article was released, which several media outlets ran, where they disclosed that he was separated from his wife, where he lived. There were photographs that were very intrusive of him with his new love, and obviously that was very disrespectful to his family. Plus, because he is equerry to the King, it also puts his family and his new girlfriend, whatever the status is, in potential harm's way. So I think it's got a lot more to do with the media have been told, back off. Now, in some more news that has come out, I hope that King Charles is well rested and he is being kept as stress-free as possible as he goes through his treatment. But his two sons have reared some serious, potentially political disaster heads. Now, the two brothers have done very, very different things, and I'm going to go over both of them because I really would love to hear your thoughts. I would say I'm on the fence when it comes to Prince William, but I don't think I am. I personally do not feel that Prince William was being political in his statement. This is obviously to do with Prince William expressing his concerns to do with the war in the Middle East. Now, lots of people have said that this is a constitutional monarchy. He needs to remain exactly how Queen Elizabeth II did. She met many people in her lifetime that I'm sure she didn't want to shake hands with. I'm sure there were many, many things throughout history that happened during her reign that she would love to have had an opinion about, but we know that she couldn't, and that's what people respected about her. But where people are saying this is Prince William being political, I think it's actually people twisting what he said to suit their own agendas. Unfortunately, by Prince William giving a statement, people have weaponized it, as I said, to suit their own agenda. It's not what he said, but it can be misconstrued by what he didn't say, and people are manipulating it. So let's break down Prince William's statement and I'll give you my thoughts. I remain deeply concerned about the terrible human cost of the conflict in the Middle East. Sorry, I can't say certain things because YouTube gets a little bit touchy. But I don't see that as being political. I believe that to be a statement that many, many people would agree with the world over. I, like so many others, want to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible. There is a desperate need for increased humanitarian support. Who in their right mind doesn't want the fighting to stop, And then, of course, there's so many people that need food, they need medical supplies, they need help that are stuck. He goes on to say that people should be returned to their families. Yes, absolutely. Of course, they should be returned to their families. They should have been returned to their families a long time ago. Again, that's not political. I think that is a fair and accurate statement that many people also agree with. Sometimes only when faced with the sheer scale of human suffering that the importance of permanent peace is brought home. This world would be a much happier place if everyone was at peace and they stopped fighting. The chances of that ever happening, because it's the human race, is highly doubtful, but it doesn't mean we can't all want for it. Even in the darkest hour, we must not succumb to despair. I continue to cling to the hope that a brighter future can be found, and I refuse to give up on that. Well, that's talking about hope. That's talking about hoping that there is still a brighter future for our children, the next generations. In 2018, Prince William visited Israel. He has met people, he's met Palestinians and the Israelis. He spent time out there getting to know people, both sides of the coin, as it were. And that's why I truly believe he felt that he wanted to say something about this. And all he is asking for is hope that one day there can be peace. I don't believe or feel that this was political. I believe this was a statement from his heart. If Prince William didn't say anything, he would have absolutely drawn negative criticism. Prince William did say something, of course. Now it's huge TV debates. There's everyone releasing stories across all different media outlets. And either way, I think that he is stuck between a rock and a hard place. He expressed what he felt was right. And as Eleanor Roosevelt once said, do what you feel in your heart is right, for you'll be criticised anyway. You only have to look at the grief that Prince William gets on a regular basis, right? Prince William wants to end homelessness. He wants to take, I think it was the Switzerland model, and to try his very best and to end it. So people then attack him. What would a prince living in a castle with all of those palaces, what would he know about it? What's he actually going to do? Prince William is building 24 social housing homes in Newquay to help with the homeless crisis. Oh, 24 houses, that's a drop in the ocean. That's not exactly going to help anyone, is it? And then Prince William is going to be building over 400 social rented homes and 475 affordable houses in Faversham in Kent. Oh, great, he's going to own more land from the little people. It's honestly truly unbelievable the amount of flack that Prince William gets, but at least he's trying to do something to help people. Okay, should Prince William have reared his head above the parapet when this is such a controversial thing at the moment? But Prince William did check with the government, and number 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister's office, said that they were more than happy for Prince William to express his personal feelings. It's obvious that his statement was cleared by multiple people before he issued it. So let's mosey on over to Canada the other day with Prince Harry. Now, Prince Harry, I believe, is getting political, wading into waters that he has got no business wading into. Now, I know it's not actually that hard to believe that Harry is actually opening his mouth and potentially putting himself and the crown in hot water, potentially also the Canadian government. He is really overstepping this time. Now, what I'm referring to is the fact that the Invictus Games have very much welcomed and integrated the First Nations, or rather the First Nations have actually welcomed the Invictus Games to Whistler because it's going to be held on their lands. They very much incorporated them into the 2025 Games. They've even redesigned the logo to incorporate the First Nations. Harry has made it clear that he's been discussing the Crown's historic commitment to the Indigenous people with the Chief of the First Nations. Chief Wayne Sparrow said of Harry that Harry wishes to discuss the reconciliations. Especially with the Crown, with reconciliation, it means a lot. A lot of politicians will say it, but they don't mean it. Now I have the opportunity in the next year to have those discussions. What? With Harry? With Harry? Harry is intending to open talks with the Chief of the First Nations to do with the Crown's commitment to the Indigenous people. Harry is not a politician, he is not a diplomat, he is not there acting on behalf of the crown. He is not educated on such a sensitive subject, nor does he have a team of trained advisors with him, which he would have done if he was still a working member of the royal family. He's not a statesman, he's not trained in public relations, he can't even resolve an argument with his brother without breaking a necklace and falling into a dog bowl. Now he thinks he can open discussions about the First Nations reconciliations? Is he speaking on behalf of the Canadian government? Because I'm pretty certain he's not speaking on behalf of the King. Harry has done everything in the last 4 and a bit years to trash the monarchy and the crown. They called the Commonwealth the Empire 2.0 in Netflix. This subject to do with First Nations and the Crown's commitment to them is conversations that are meant between the Canadian government and the monarch, the King. King Charles, who was then Prince Charles, actually paid a visit and met with people from the First Nations back in 2022. He said that he was deeply moved by the survivors of the residential school scandals and that their pain and suffering must be recognised. We have a responsibility to listen and to understand and to foster relationships between the Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in Canada. Harry wouldn't have the first clue about this. Now, if Harry wants to sit down and learn from the chief and learn from the people, he can do that on a personal level. But for Harry to say that he's going to come back to talk about reconciliations between the crown, this is very, very dangerous territory. So obviously I am not educated myself to even touch on the slightest bit to do with this subject, but I knew someone that would be able to help me and to try and explain to me how dangerous this is for Harry to be doing and to be saying this. And that is my wonderful friend who I love dearly, Suzanne, who lives in Canada. Now, she is a teacher, and when she was at university, she studied native history, and she has also spent many years teaching it to children and also to adults. And she said to me on the phone that she, despite all of these years of teaching people, she's taught in reservations as well, she wouldn't even dream to stick her head above that parapet because she understands what a sensitive and delicate and complicated subject this is. But then you've got Harry, who is actually saying that he's going to be taking part in discussions. And that, as I said, it's incredibly dangerous because we know he's not acting on behalf of anyone other than himself. Now, the chief also goes on to say about his discussions with Harry, it's just the stuff like that we can talk about with Harry because it was the commitment that the crown was going to look after us. A lot of those commitments fell by the wayside, but now there's an opportunity as we grow to move forward that we can still correct the wrongdoings and put them behind us. He seems to think that Harry can somehow help with this. This is a massive diplomatic red flag. The Canadian government needs to intervene. The Crown needs to intervene. And I'm very sorry for the First Nations to say this, but Harry is only using them. He is using them. If he really cared about the plights and the struggles of the Indigenous people, as I said, he's completely ignoring the tribe of the Baka people. Now, these are people that he can help now, not historically. These are things that he could have done. He could have put a call out a year ago when he found out the atrocities that were being committed by Africa Parks, the same Africa Parks that he was president of for 6 years and is now on the board of directors. And he didn't do anything. Harry and Meghan are using them. And whilst I think it's wonderful for them to be included as part of the Invictus Games, because they were very much excluded when the 2010 Winter Olympics were held, I can't help but feel that they are just being used by Harry and Meghan for personal PR and also for virtue signalling. And I think that is terribly, terribly sad. Now, that's been quite a serious discussion so far. Let's move on to some light-hearted stuff. Let's talk about the fact that Harry today gets a more of a judgment of whether Americans are going to find out about whether he lied on his visa or whether the US government is lying to keep him in the country. Now, what is really funny on social media before I start this, you've got the Sussex squad and they're saying, oh, look, the derangers all want Harry to come back to the royal family. The royal family are so desperate that they're stitching him up. It's like, no one needs to stitch Harry up. He has done this to himself by bragging about his old drug use and his continued drug use when he did the interviews and his book Spare. So of course it has raised some serious concerns, because anybody else, the average Joe that would be going to America, got caught out doing drugs whilst in the country, be deported. Got caught out lying on visa, would be deported and blacklisted. But Harry seems to have gotten away from it. So this means that Harry either lied, or the US government have made special privileges for a very privileged prince. A federal judge in Washington, D.C. will now be hearing the Heritage Foundation versus the Department of Homeland Security's court case regarding Prince Harry's visa. They have filed under the Freedom of Information Act against the Department of Homeland Security. If Harry lied and omitted his drug taking from the visa application, he should have it revoked and he should be kicked out of the country. If he was honest and told the truth, well, there's a first for everything, isn't there? Then the Heritage Foundation wants to know why they overlooked this. As I said, anyone else would have been kicked out of the country. Does that mean that he has been given favourable treatment just because of who he is? I'm sure that many Americans that have had loved ones, friends, family members deported over misdemeanours to do with their visas would be very interested to know if the same rules do not apply to Prince Harry. Now, it's clearly obvious, come on, we all know that the government, not just the US government, the UK government, there are allowances made for the rich, for the elite. It all goes down to the green talking for you. We know that we get treated differently to the 1%, but the 1% don't want us to know quite so obviously. So they are going to be stuck in a very tricky situation, because if it is divulged, if the federal court do actually rule saying, no, he should have been kicked out, he can reapply, I'm sure he'll get back in. Nigella Lawson managed to. But either way, it's clearly obvious that someone is not telling the truth, or there has been a cover-up, because Harry did admit in his own words, this is not the UK media manipulating the dear boy's words, he said, I took drugs, I had a drug problem, I still take drugs, I've used drugs regularly. I went to Courtney Cox's house and got off my face on mushrooms and chatted to a bin. Yeah, I was doing drugs while my wife and kid was sleeping upstairs. These are all things that Harry has said whilst he's on a visa in his now adopted country. So of course, Harry saying recently that he's going to apply for a US citizenship has now added to this court case, because quite rightly the Heritage Foundation is saying, excuse me, it can't be a case of rules for thee but not for me. As I said, we all know that the political elite and these top 1% get away with it, but by using Harry, it's almost they're going to have to make an example of him if it gets proved that he lied, or the visa office have turned around and said, do you know what? Just go on through. So very interesting times, but I'm not hopeful because, as I said, he's the 1%. So moving on from that, let's get on to my final story. That is the paparazzi shy, the wallflower that is Meghan. Now, Meghan has been spotted. I say spotted, of course, she alerted paparazzi. She's turned up in Beverly Hills with the lady that designed her wedding dress, Givenchy, who got let go. But given the state of Princess Charlotte's bridesmaid dress, it's hardly surprising. But anyway, Meghan comes out of this restaurant. You can see here, she's terrified of the paparazzi. I mean, look at her, the look of fear on her face as she comes out of the restaurant, as she's being hounded. It's laughable in itself, but that's not the funny bit. The funny bit is these guys all start saying, Meghan, you look lovely. Meghan, you look beautiful. Meghan, how was your lunch? But then when Meghan gets in the car and drives away, you hear one guy, he was like, Meghan who? It's like, Meghan Markle.
Or Meghan Markle.
He'd obviously just heard them saying her name because they knew that they were there to get the pictures. And he's like, oh, so who was that? Meghan Markle. And that, to me, I just thought it was just too good not to include. Meghan who? Meghan who indeed. Anyway, guys, that's it for me on this video. A little bit of everything, but tell me your thoughts. Really interested to hear all of your opinions all around the world on this one. Anyway, take care. Happy Friday. See you soon. Bye.